today. And as we gather here today, 40 years on from the strike and the deaths of Davy Jones and Joe Green, we face the sacrifices of those that have come before us, the realities of struggle, and a reminder that every working class battle is never fought for free. Friends, the NUM and miners is in my family's blood. My great uncle James died of a rockfall in a Durham pit in 1921. He went out to work that day, kissed his children and his wife, and he never came home. And he was 33 years old, and he left behind a young wife, my aunt, and 3 children under 10. And he was given just £300, his family, in compensation, £15,000 in today's money. The disposability of a life, of a father, bought and paid for by corporate greed, killed and tossed aside at work by a boss who didn't give a damn. And that story, friends, that story of being in this room is making me feel hugely emotional as I'm saying this. That story I heard when I was 8 years old. And it haunted me at the time. I was thinking, my God, how could something like that happen where someone dies at work? And I thought that will never happen again. And of course it does happen again. It is happening again, time after time after time. And it has shaped my political thinking from that child of 8 ever since. And 60 years on from my uncle's death, people like Davy and Joe, they didn't just fight for their jobs, but they also fought for those that had gone before. For those that had been bought and paid for their dignity and their respect. So friends, that's the lesson. That's the lesson that we need to harness. We need to do more than just remember. We need to hold it in our hearts, and we need to channel it, and we need to act on it. Because friends, when you look at what's happening now, and Mick has outlined some of the issues that we face. We don't own anything. Everything has been sold off. You say the words renationalisation, everyone thinks, my God, that's a radical idea. It's not a radical idea to own our own energy, to own our own gas, to own our own water. Where has these decades of individualism left us? Where has it left us? Mass privatisation and profiteering, poverty and homelessness, low-paid jobs and a crumbling infrastructure, billionaires and food banks, and phony fiscal rules that they make up, and austerity. And friends, let's not forget the old blame games. A billionaire Prime Minister accusing migrants in small boats of being responsible for our decline. Supported by New Labour and exploited by those on the fringes. Our political class is playing games, where our economy is broken, our society is fractured, and we have a pathetic legacy left in terms of what the free marketeers have left us. But friends, there is hope. There is hope. It does not have to be inevitable. Inequality is not enshrined. Inequality is not enshrined, it's a political choice. And yes, over time there have been flashes of hope. There have been political heroes. There have been projects that have arrived and failed, burning brightly, but all too fleetingly. And for those of us that believe in change, for those of us that believe that change is possible, that a break with the last 40 years is possible, it's really clear, it's very clear, that there has been a reliance and an over-reliance on political heroes and individuals. And that has been as much as a problem as part of the solution. Because friends, what Thatcher knew, what she knew, her entire focus was to break the strike and break the resolve of workers. It was to attack our citadel of power within the working class, our instrument of power. Not the Labour Party, or any other party for that matter. The trade union movement, workers, the collective. This is always going to be our instrument of power. And with that, she would break the Labour Party. Break what was ever left of the left, of their claim to be the party of workers. And with it, break any challenge to capital or any challenge to the rich and the powerful. Thatcher knew what was at stake. That's why she prepared. That's why they did what they did. And just as thousands of miners knew what she knew, that this job strike was about jobs. Of course it was about jobs, but it was also about power. The power of the working class and the power for us to shift the dial. Friends, the sacrifice of struggle and the acknowledgement of what that struggle really means. These are the key lessons for today. And this is how we can best remember those that have fallen. Those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for what they believed in. For Davy and for Joe. And friends, successive Tory governments, they've learned very well from Thatcher, haven't they? They've learned very, very well. They know that by taming the trade union movement, by damaging the institutions of the working class, our institutions, by taking on the very foundations of working class solidarity, that this bedrock cannot be replaced by a figurehead from a political party. That's not where working class power is. It's in rooms like this and rooms up and down the country and in workplaces. And I have said, of course, we want a Labour government. I want a Labour government. But Labour has to remember that lesson. And I want a Labour government in that fights for workers, and we're very, very clear. Who's like Labour? Friends, there is no shortcut to renewal. We've got to start from the ground up, from the workplace, from within our communities. Because make no mistake, left politics without industrial organisation is a cause without a class. And that cause, without industrial organisation and worker organisation, it will be destined to fail. It is now our job. It's the job of building back working class power. That's what we need to do. We need to be patient builders, not temporary heroes. This is not about individuals, it's about the working class collective. We need to bring in long-term organisation. This is how we can remember. This is how we can remember those that have fallen. Not through commentary and critique, as inevitable as that will be, but by doing and by action. By committing to the long, hard miles of organising. By understanding that sacrifice is the battle. And to fight, we need an army. So friends, let's learn from the past and build the future. We can build that fire again, but stronger. We're not just replicating the past, but we want to build on it. A real focus, an absolute committed focus to the shop stewards movement, because they are the real leaders. Do that same job and find those leaders in our communities. Because if we are to break the wheel, if we're to break the wheel and the cycle of empty Labourism, then we need to move the political centre ground beneath their feet. It's not just about sponsoring MPs and lobbying, as much as that's important, but it's about building political organisations in our communities. And that's why Unite, under my leadership, will be devoting resource to developing the working class politics. But it will be from the streets and from the workplaces, not just from Westminster. Yes, we will lobby. Yes, we will lobby. We will lobby. We will intervene politically. But our real project, the real project here, is the project to generate power. That we take it into our towns, our cities, in our pubs, in our workplaces, in our community centres, piece by piece. We will rebuild a movement for the working class, a movement of the working class. And friends, we will teach the lessons from history, of the sacrifice of Davy and Joe and others, and we will put the stake in the ground. Because now it's time, 40 years on from the strike, to embark again on our central mission. To make another world. A better world is possible. And to really believe again that we can make change. Change made by us, not by others on our behalf, made by us, the working class movement. And friends, we'll need to use our brains and our brawn. We will need to be able to move the picket line as long as with the shareholders. And we will need to be able to mobilise like we have never mobilised before. Friends, the recent strike waves that we have seen has helped to begin this process of renewal, giving confidence to hundreds of thousands of workers. Not just workers in the disputes you see on the TV, but workers up and down the countries, in cities all over our nations. Workers who for the first time in many cases, or for the first time in a long time, are beginning to take action. And they have engaged. They have engaged in a form of struggle. And they have seen the profiteers for what they really are, and they have demanded more, and they have won more. Friends, you know, who was it? Who was it who went out in the pandemic? I didn't see any city bankers out there in the pandemic fighting what was going on. It was everyday people on low wages mostly. NHS workers, bus workers, dock workers, supermarket workers, and big workers. Phony claps from government ministers who sacrifice absolutely nothing. Well, they are demanding more and they need to get more. Friends, in my union, we have began this pushback for the last 2 years. There has been over 1,000 strikes in our union just in the last 2 years, covering 200,000 Unite members. And 80% of those strikes have been won, and £430 million has gone back into the pockets of workers, out of the shareholders' hands. And I bring with you today the solidarity of those striking workers. Some of them are in this room. Thank you for everything you do. And friends, these strikes have renewed confidence. They've renewed confidence in our union and in the movement, a confidence that we can win. And our job is to harness that confidence up and down the country and use it to rebuild our power. Friends, the flame, it does flicker anew. The flame flickers anew. The rebirth of the trade union movement has begun. A politics of struggle, a politics of hope. And friends, remember, as we remember Davy and Joe today, we will remember the old truth, that the victory is the struggle is the victory. For that is our conviction, that it's a change worth fighting for. So let's lift up our heads, friends. Let's lift